Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. This video is a book review of The Heat of the Day by Elizabeth Bowen, first published in 1948. So this book is set in wartime, World War II, that is London. And we have our main character called Stella. Stella has a son called Roderick who is serving in the army. Stella is a divorcee, but her ex-husband has passed away. At a funeral, she meets a man called Harrison. Harrison, no one seems to really know who he is, but he's a very important man. He then shows up later on in our timeline at Stella's flat, and he says, you know this man that you're seeing? She's seeing a man called Robert, and she has been for 2 years, but it's wartime and everything's a bit up in the air about marriage and courtship and things like that. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, we think he is selling secrets to the enemy. And she's like, oh dear. That is kind of all I want to say, because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it's a book about relationships that become very strained under pressure during Second World War. It's got a bit of politics in there, bit of relationships and friendship, trust, all those different types of things crammed into this book. This was my first Elizabeth Bowen. I'd heard many great things about her work from a lot of different authors, to be honest. Elizabeth Bowen is a name that comes up again and again in a lot of the literature that I read. I pick out my literature based on recommendations from the literature that I'm currently reading. So a lot of the time I'm reading predominantly modern classics, but I'll read a classic and at the beginning of the book they'll say an author similar to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and a name that crops up again and again has been Elizabeth Bowen. So I knew I wanted to get to her work, and I've had this on my shelf for a while. I'd heard great things and I was expecting great things. Did I have that in this book? Meh, sort of, ish. This book was good, but not great for me. It's a book that I think is quite an intelligent read. I think it's quite dense. To me, it felt quite dense. It's very descriptive heavy, and it's just paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and pages of descriptive writing, which is great. But the bit that I loved was the dialogue. When the dialogue was there, I really understood these characters, and it didn't feel dense or heavy or anything like that, and I could just enjoy it for what it was. When it was the paragraphs and paragraphs and pages of descriptive writing, I felt a little bit heavy in reading it, and I didn't read it at the same pace that I read the dialogue. I loved the dialogue. I've had thoughts about this book, about whether I'm not an intellectual reader or enough of an intellectual reader to understand it and comprehend it in the way in which it's meant to be, if that makes sense. Or perhaps Elizabeth Bowen isn't for me. I mean, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. It's a book that is my typical kind of read. So that's kind of how I felt about it. I wanted to do this review of it because I don't see too many people talking about Elizabeth Bowen, and she's an author that I'm definitely going to stick with. I think if I go into a charity shop and I see her book there, I will pick it up to read it and hopefully love it, because I know she's written quite a few and she's a name that comes up again and again, and I know so many other authors that I read love her work, and I want to be one of those people that love her work too. So there we have it. That is my review of The Heat of the Day by Elizabeth Bowen. Let me know what you think of this book in the comments section down below. I just don't know whether I'm an intellectual reader enough to understand it in the way that it was written to understand. Perhaps because it is more of a sad, sombre book than I perhaps would want to read at this time. That's why I'm finding it difficult to get through. But I did like it. I gave it 3 stars. It just wasn't as amazing as I wanted it to be. It was good, but not amazing. Bit of a shame. So anyway, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up and chat to me in the comments all things to do with Elizabeth Bowen, essentially, because I've just started my journey with her and I'm going to continue with it in the future. So that is it for this video. Take care and I shall see you soon for the next one. Bye for now.